Hello and welcome back to episode 6 of Unconditional Podcast. I can't believe I'm on number 6 already. We are back again with my wonderful Brit, and not Brit as in from Britain, but Brit as in
Not to be confused.
Yeah, just make sure we clarify that. We're going to continue the conversation with them about their coming out story. Last week, they told us about how their anxiety and their self-harm prior to, and then actually continuing until most recently, and then their story about coming out to their mom. And today we're going to continue the conversation with talks about coming out to their dad and a few more people, and also go into what happened at work when they came out. So again, thank you for coming back. This is Unconditional, the podcast from Transcend with Love, where we are here to help parents or loved ones of individuals that are coming out. I specifically talk more about transgender and non-binary, but this is for anybody that has a loved one that has come out under the LGBTQ rainbow. So with that, I reintroduce Brit, who came out almost 10 years ago as a lesbian to their family, and we're going to go with that. Thank you so much, Brit, for being back. I'm really appreciative. Last week you showed so much courage and vulnerability, and I'm so proud of you for the braveness that you have shown and for just wanting to share your story. It can be a huge help for some people. The way I see it, as long as we can help one person, it makes a difference. True. So is there anything you want to go ahead? I don't want to interrupt.
No, I was going to say, it's very important for me to get my story out there and share it, because I want other people to know that not every coming out story is going to be like fabulous and beautiful. But even if it isn't fabulous and beautiful, it can, like, you can still be who you are, have a healthy relationship with yourself, and I don't know, just live your life to your fullest, no matter how your coming out story is.
Yes, it does. We don't have to be defined by that one moment.
Absolutely not. So,
okay, well, I'm going to start. And as I said before, if there's anything that you feel uncomfortable or whatever, you just, this is your time. This is your story. This is the time for you to tell it the way that you feel comfortable and safe. So we talked about your mom last time. Let's talk about your dad. When did you tell him? I know was it right after you told your mom? Like, how did that go?
When I told my dad, it was later that day, that evening. I had family in town, I think, my grandparents or my grandfather, and we were going out to eat, and it was before we went to eat, he and I were in the car driving. And so I was like, all right, this is the time I need to tell him, I guess, because my mom was like, you need to tell your dad today. So I was crunched on time, but I ended up telling him and saying, like, hey, I need to tell you something. It's pretty big, and ultimately I just want you to know that, like, I still want to be your daughter and I still want to be loved. And so at that point he was kind of concerned, like thinking, oh my gosh, are you pregnant or what? So I told him, I was like, I identify as this is who I am. And he was quiet for a very long time, which is okay. He was processing it. And I think the first thing that came out of his mouth was, I want you to know I still love you, but I do not support you, and I will not support you in any way. So it was kind of a caveat, like, I love you, but also I don't support you. But like I said last week, I wish I had just heard the I love you. So that did already make a big impact on me. Having already come out to my mom earlier, like, hearing the I love you was great. And that's kind of where we left it. It wasn't till like a few weeks later that I kind of talked about it more with him over text, because I wasn't living in the same town as them again. But even the texts later on were similar to my mom's, just like, okay, I don't really want to acknowledge it, but I love you. um, so yeah, that's kind of how it is
So
with him.
do you think, well, thank you again for sharing that. I know that it can be difficult. It sounds like it was a little bit better than your mom's.
Yeah.
Do you think that it came across better or easier because you had already, I don't know, I'm guessing if it had been me and I had this reaction from my mom, that I would have gone in with my dad with like this huge wall, like not expecting anything.
Mhm.
Do you feel that that's what you did?
Yes, I was expecting the worst. Um, yeah, I went in expecting the worst, thinking he was gonna like, blow up angrily and just lash out, but that didn't happen, thankfully.
Good,
He's
good.
better than that. He's a better man than that. So,
So the only thing you wish I think would have been different was that he would have stopped after the "I love you."
I
I
wish.
don't support you. I mean, not necessarily him saying I support you, just stopping at the "I love you." And then
Mhm.
maybe having the "I don't support you" conversations later on.
Later. Yeah.
Okay.
That would have been
Okay.
nice, but it all came at once. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
get everything out of the way.
Yeah. Hey, this is it. I stand right here.
Check off all the boxes.
Did you find it Did you find the way that they accepted or that they responded to you coming out between your mom and your dad? Did you find it made a difference as to how you then initially the relationship you had initially with them, or is the relationship you had with them not only just based on that but also just on the relationship you already had with them before and their personalities? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
I'm trying to get it.
Okay. So that person or like relationships with the person really don't depend on one thing. They depend on the
Yep.
people's personality, just some parents and children just don't click, some
Mhm.
do. Um I know you stated or before that the relationship with your her mom had been wonderful
Mhm.
a few months prior to that, and then all of a sudden it just kind of just ceased and desist pretty
Mhm.
much for the relationship with your dad, how had that been prior
Gotcha.
um to you coming out?
He and I kind of we butt heads a little bit often. I think we have a similar stubbornness about us. I think that's where I get it from is my stubbornness. It's from him. So, uh, we got along. We could communicate. It wasn't anything harsh or anything, but we had a decent relationship. It was fine, and I didn't really see anything wrong with it at the time. It was pretty normal, I guess, compared like a normal father-daughter relationship. So
And did it stay that way after you came out, or did you see some differences?
I definitely saw differences. It was similar to my mom because my family was very faith-based, religious, and had the same mentality of you're not gonna go to heaven. This is like not the way to live your life, kind of thing. So it was similar to my mom's, and like the conversations became a little shorter, a little more awkward, and trying not to bring up the LGBTQ community as much around them, for their sake. Because I was like, it's awkward for me, it's awkward for them, but still trying to be me. That was a really fine line. So, but yeah, it was similar to my mom's reaction.
I know you mentioned before that that you would go visit your mom and your partner would never go with you, and that
Mhm.
you felt that struggle and that hurt. Was it the
Yeah.
same with your dad?
Yes. Yeah. It was pretty similar. I remember it was his birthday, and we had family come in. We were going to celebrate it in June, so shortly after coming out, and it was the same conversation. Like, no, they're not allowed. Um, but we would love to see you. So it was again another decision I had to make. That was hard to like leave my partner at the time and go be with my family. So
Did you feel like you were hiding a whole part of you when you were around them, that you basically had to transform into a different person, or what did that feel like?
yeah, it felt like because how I felt growing up when I was 18 or 19, kind of coming to terms with that myself and thinking, oh, this, I kind of like women, like, and not men. And trying to reconcile that with myself. It was very similar to how I felt back then of trying to hide it. Because I didn't want our interactions to be awkward. I didn't want anyone else to find out, because at that point they were the only two besides my brother and my friend who knew. And it was like, you got to keep this quiet. You can't tell anybody. For some reason, I might wreck our name. I don't know. Just don't tell anybody. So that was hard. So I did have to hide it, and it did feel like I was trying to be someone else. So
Did you live, remind me, did you live in the same town as them?
at this time, yes, I was still living in the same town, but just
Okay.
not with them. I was
Okay.
living on my own.
Did you, because I know eventually you were in a different town. Did that
Mhm.
happen because you wanted to feel more free, or what was it, or is that completely separate from why you moved?
Um, the reason I moved is after coming out to another my job, and having to move to find a new job. Uh, that's when I moved from the town I was at, close to them, to another town with me and my partner living together. So it was that moment that caused the
That
move.
made it.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I guess let's jump into that then.
Yeah.
We'll go back to what I would to the
All
other
right.
family members, but this was a good segue. So
I
at the
was trying to
time,
avoid it.
yeah, yeah, I know, and we cannot talk about it if you like.
It's fine.
So at the time, you were a teacher, an elementary
Yes.
school teacher for
Mhm.
a religious school.
Private Christian school. Yes.
Okay. Um, and so you then decided to let them know also.
Yeah. So it was the summer that same-sex marriage became legal, and um, I posted a post on my Facebook about how Christians should be supportive of this, because love is in its purest form is what God intended, and all this stuff. And so I get a call from my administration in the middle of summer in July, and they called me in for a meeting. And so in that meeting, they were like, you're on a pedestal working for us and in this, religious setting. I was like, yes, absolutely. I realize that. And I'm always really careful what I post online, to begin with. So I was a little shocked that I was going to be reprimanded for this, but also not. So they said, why would you post something like this? What does that mean to you? It doesn't align with our belief system, and we think that you should like delete it. And again, the question kept coming up of like, why did you post this? Why did you post this? It just kept coming up. And eventually, I think it was a 30-minute conversation that I was in there. Eventually, I was like, the reason I posted this is because I am in a loving and committed relationship with my partner. And it's like the air left the room. And I think it was within that moment they had already decided, like, all right, we're terminating you. Or what they said is like, we're not renewing your contract for the following year. So, but it wasn't until the next day that they actually called me and said that. But I think it was in that moment where they had decided, like, nope. Because I mean, and it's true. I wish I had prepared myself more before having that conversation with them, as far as like my lifestyle and a job and how to support myself. Because it was in that moment I was like, oh, I don't have a job. I have bills I got to pay. Um, so I wish I had prepared myself a little bit more for that conversation, but it was hard to say that to them and explain our relationship to them. But I think it was the best thing that I could have done. And looking back on it, I think I still would have made that same decision because it was so freeing. I remember driving away from that appointment being shocked and scared, but also just like I could take a deep sigh of relief again. Um, so I don't think I would change the fact that I came out to them. I think it is unfortunate that people can and do lose their jobs because of who they are. But I kind of should have known that it was in my contract that I couldn't have a relationship like this. So, and I did. So, I guess I was going against that the whole time, but I don't see how it affected my teaching ability. But I digress.
Yeah. No, I understand. And, and I'm assuming that you now seeing that you can see how that happened is probably comes from years of being separated from it, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that when it first happened, you weren't sitting there. It's like, oh yeah, I get it. You were, you were probably mad, and
Yes, I was really mad and scared.
yeah, and probably got some resentment from it. I mean, that's all natural. It's all normal.
And there
It's
still is a lot of resentment. So, and I'm still working through that today because I mean, it was a big deal. It was my
yeah.
alma mater and I love teaching there. So it was rough. It was a hard break.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry you went through that. And I know that's difficult. And unfortunately, actions have consequences, and sometimes they're consequences that we love, and sometimes they're not. I'm grateful that you can see it in that way,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about you. It was just about anybody in that position would have
Yeah.
gotten the same thing. I'm not saying I agree or not agree. I'm just,
Yeah.
you know, so I guess that begs the question of, where are you now? I know you said you're still dealing with the you're working and processing through the resentment. In the last podcast and this, you brought up how you were raised in a very religious environment, and you believe that that's why your parents reacted the way
Mm-hmm.
that they did. Do
Mm-hmm.
you still have resentments towards your specific faith that you were raised in? Just overall, like religion, spiritual, like what would you consider yourself if someone asked you, spiritually, how do you feel, or what do you believe?
I I would say I still do hold a little bit of resentment towards just religion as a whole. But specifically the faith that I grew up in, it was very evangelical and in your face and out there. So I do have things that I'm still processing through, um, mindsets that I'm still having to adjust myself and like deconstructing that. I know that's a really big word right now, and social media is deconstruction, but it is. It's a process that you take apart a little bit at a time and unlearning some of those um, kind of mindsets that I once held. So I don't really participate in any sort of faith or religion at the moment, and um, I think that's okay. I still feel like towards spirituality, I feel a little connected to that, and I feel like the two are different, but I won't go into that today.
Yeah.
Uh, that's for
That's a
another
topic for a
podcast.
whole other day.
Uh, so I think it did affect my relationship to religion, and but that's okay. And like I respect people who have that faith still, and I think the only time that I have a hard time like seeing eye to eye with people is when they have that strong faith and they still aren't able to see another human being and say, you are still a human being, you are loved, you are accepted just as much as I am. So that's iffy. It's like, you hate the sin, love the sinner comment. Like that is, I get that all the time. That's harsh. And not a lot of people in faith realize that. Um, it's a harsh comment to make, but I still learn how to process that and get over that. um, but I do have grace for people who just, they're in their own set, um, I don't know, mindset, and that's okay. Like, as long as they're not hating on people, actively hating on people, then I respect them, and I think they can do what they need to do and believe in what they want to believe in, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm
No,
not trying to bash religion at all.
no. It's not coming across that way at all.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no. I know you enough to know that you're very respectful, and that you are just a very loving person. And exactly what you said, everybody has a right to believe what they want to believe, and it's just let's not impose that on other people. So I understand what you're saying, because I've been on both extremes. I've been on the extreme of, very religious, very, and the extreme of, oh my God, the complete other way. Like, hey, don't get in my way because you're wrong and I'm right, and the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. And so that's why it does become easier to have grace on people. I want to ask this a question that just kind of came to mind. So you, in the last 8 years, let's say, or since, you came out, have you met many, I'm just going to say, Christian individuals that have shown you a different side and not just the condemning, because in the LGBTQ community, unfortunately, because of the experiences that a lot of people have had, there is a lot of resentment and bitterness towards religious people. Christian. I'm going to talk Christian because that's what I know. Okay. Because of the reaction, because of the personal experiences they've had. And I think that's sad because I think there's a lot of people who aren't like that and don't impose their beliefs and don't, and so my question is, have you had the experience of meeting people like that even though they don't necessarily quote unquote approve, they support and accept and love?
Yes. So. Yes. I have come across a couple people. Yeah. And that is refreshing, I will say, and very much appreciated. So some of those people are my family. Some of those people are just strangers that work in churches. So, the rest of my family has faith. They believe in Jesus, God, they have their faith and they have their religion, and they still accept me and love me for the whole person that I am. And they are part of my support system. So I will say, like, my aunt and uncle, who are very supportive of me, and my cousins also, they are also very supportive and very loving and will probably be in my corner forever. So I appreciate that. I love y'all. If you're ever watching this. So yeah, I've had strangers that are accepting, but also family. And I think the family makes a bigger impact on me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you brought up your aunt and uncles. I know they've been a huge support system for you.
Huge.
They've stepped up, or not stepped up, sorry, stepped in. And
they have stepped up.
And really just, helped you out of some dark places. So I'm very grateful for your aunt and uncle. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. I think those were all the questions that we had. Going back to, everything that we've talked about, is there anything that you want to add, whether it's I finally remember what I was going to ask you. You made a comment to me before, and I really would like to get this on here, about how after your mom passed, there was some changes in your family. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reminding me. So after my mom passed, it was obviously a shock to everyone because it was unexpected, and it was really hard on my family. But obviously, when people pass away, your family comes together to have a funeral, ceremonies, and all those things. And I remember during those 2 weeks after she passed and before we had her funeral, all the family members that would come up to me and pull me aside and say, I haven't always agreed with your lifestyle. And I don't know if I still do, but I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, like, I love you so much. And it came differently with other family members, but that was the gist of it, is they would pull me aside and say that. Even my family members from deep South, deep Baptist South, family members, they were like, I love you so much. Even one of those family members who now lives here where I live in Colorado, asked me the other day, do you have a partner again? Do another partner yet? And I was like, no. But just them acknowledging that and asking that question is huge. So it was a shift after my mom passed, which is unfortunate, but also I am grateful for it. So big life changes and deaths can change a lot of people. So
yeah, unfortunately, it takes something major like that sometimes to happen, and it is sad, like you said. So do you think that now, when you do have another loving and devoted partner that I can't wait to meet when it happens. Because they have to get my approval, I have to say. No pressure, no pressure. Do you feel like it's going to be different now in the sense where you won't have to partake in family without sharing that with your partner, that you won't have to hide that part of you like you did back then?
Oh, absolutely. I think it will be very different now. My aunt and uncle are always like, have you met anyone? Or like, you want me to hook you up with so and so from our church? And so, which I have seen a picture of them. They are very attractive. So, but it's like they're supportive in that way. Like they would definitely welcome in anybody that I think is, suitable enough for me.
That's good. So the last 8 years have, to sum it up, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
your journey, the last 8 to 10 years, has been a roller coaster.
Oh, yes.
Many, many downs, lots of downs, but also great ups.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say, like I said last week with self-harm and my mental health and anxiety, I've struggled with like panic attacks since I was like 8 or 9 years old and have been in and out of therapy and in and out of hospitalizations, which is unfortunate, but also have been very healing. And so I want to like say to people who are in my place or, deconstructing or still in the closet and wanting to come out to their faith-based family or still trying to acknowledge it themselves, it's okay to feel the feelings and feel them all. But also, I just know that there are resources out there for you and you're not alone. Because I know a lot of LGBTQIA plus people struggle with their mental health. And I think that's really telling of how we are accepted in our culture. But I do want people to know that there are resources out there and to use them. And if you have questions or want resources, to reach out, I guess, somehow to me if you want, through Yesenia.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big advocate for mental health and I want to make sure that everyone has access to it. So
Yes, thank you.
that was my little
That's your little tidbit.
soapbox.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's great advice. It really is. Thank you. I am so appreciative of you. On the parent side, what I want to say is between last week's video and or last week's podcast and conversation with you and this week, the biggest nugget that I got from it as a parent is all you have to say when your child or your loved one comes out is, I love you. And I will always love you.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. Leave the questions, leave the comments, the anything else aside. You can discuss those later when two people are in a better emotional state, because at that moment for the person coming out, it is terrifying. It is so full of fear of being rejected and being alone that anything outside of I love you and I will always love you is going to cause more fear and more anxiety. And as parents, by just saying, I love you, I will always love you. And I even say, I'm a big hugger, give a big embrace and just love on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so say nothing else will give us as parents the time to sit with it, process it, figure out our feelings, reach out to someone, reach out to someone and get our own emotional and mental health direction before digging into this conversation. That's a huge conversation to have with our child and anybody that we love. Because once something is said, it's very difficult to take it back. Mm-hmm. Even if it's said out of reaction, out of fear, mm-hmm. out of what we think is love. And it is love. It is love, emotional. It's better to take the time. So I'm not saying don't process feelings. I'm not saying you have to immediately start, walking behind them with, the flag or like my mama bear mug.
There you
You
go.
You don't have to do that immediately or ever, really. It's
Mhm.
more so just love.
Just love.
Just love
That's the biggest thing is love.
and take the time. And then eventually check back in and be like, okay, just know that I'm processing.
Mhm.
Maybe the next day or that night or whenever, say I heard you. I don't want you to think that I didn't hear you. And I don't want you to think that I'm ignoring this or sweeping it under the rug. No,
Mhm.
you are way too important to me. I want to make sure that I think about this and process it so that I then have I'm more respectful and loving when I come with the questions or when I come with whatever it is that I have to
Mhm.
say. So, but don't forget that I love you. Just all they need,
Yeah.
I'm guessing all we need to know is all we want to know as people is that we've been heard, that
Mhm.
we are unconditionally loved, that we're unconditionally seen, and that we're unconditionally heard. That there is
Mhm.
no conditions behind it, nor agenda, that
Oh,
we are just, especially by our family, by our
yes,
parents.
absolutely.
So that is my tidbit of information or tidbit of advice for those. It's not easy. I don't think it'll ever be an easy thing.
No, it's
If
not
it
easy.
is, I think that's kind of great, if eventually it turns into like, hey, no big deal. But
Mhm.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, especially
Mhm.
now with how everything is
Yeah. It's a
society
scary
wise.
world to live in right now.
Yes. So just do the best we can. Like we said before, have
Mhm.
grace on yourself. And with our grace, we can have grace to other people.
Mhm.
And just do the best we can. That's all we can do. And like my little sign says, this way, no, it says, find joy in the journey. um, Thank you again, Britt. I love you so much. And
I
I'm
love you too.
so absolutely proud of you. And I can't wait for you to come so we can graduate
I
you,
know, just a few
celebrate
months
the
away.
master. Yes, yes. Okay. So with that, everybody, I want to say goodbye. Thank you again to Britt. And I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast again and keep following me. Like I've said before, I am here if you need me. All of my info is just in the bios. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I try just to be there for people. That's it. I have no agenda except that. Love you all so much. Have a great week. Bye. Mwah.